Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tony Payan. I'm the director of the Mexico Center here at the Baker Institute at Rice University. It is my most distinct pleasure to welcome you today to this hall and to this discussion on immigration. I want to begin by telling you that I'm not from Houston, but I came here almost 7 years ago to join the Baker Institute and to found the Mexico Center. I lived in several cities before, and I can assuredly tell you that of all of them, Houston is a very special place. When I travel and I am asked, how is Houston? I am very quick to tell people that Houston is a great, diverse, tolerant city. A city that knows how to value individual merit, hard work, and the contributions of all its residents, no matter where they come from. Houston is in fact a city of immigrants, some from other countries, some from other states, and some even from other cities in Texas, some documented and some undocumented. But one thing we do know, all of them, the CEOs of great corporations, business entrepreneurs, medical professionals, professors and researchers, electricians, plumbers, gardeners, construction workers, and even restaurant cooks and busboys, all work in a metaphorical shoulder to shoulder to make our community what it is. And it is because we understand merit, hard work, tolerance, and diversity, because it is part of who we are. And because we value every citizen and non-citizen that comes to live, work, and play with us, that we are puzzled by our political leaders in Washington and Austin who do not always understand that communities like Houston grow, prosper, and fulfill their destiny in large part because of all these new arrivals. And because our leaders have failed to understand this, our immigration system is broken. It is underfunded, understaffed, misunderstood, overwhelmed, excessively punitive, and hostage to poisonous rhetoric. It pits some Americans against other Americans. It makes companies compete disloyally for workers. It creates mental and emotional distress in families, and it criminalizes dreams and aspirations, the very thing that America is made of. It stunts growth and opportunities. And so here we are today, gathered as a local community, trying to figure out how to make up for the failures of our national leadership. Here we are today, asking ourselves what we can do over the issue of immigration. And here we are today, balancing our desire for the rule of law and our own humanity. We are put in a very tough spot, but we don't shrink away from any of these challenges. We take those questions head on because we know what is at stake for us and for Houston. And so we meet here today to address how Houston can take a lead role on immigration. We call on its experts, activists, professionals, entrepreneurs, and even its artists to share their research, data, views, concerns, and even their artwork on this issue. Over the course of today, we will discuss statistics, numbers. We will screen a short film from the Rational Middle. We will hold out in breakout sessions in the afternoon to talk about workforce policy and social support issues. And through all this, we will stay focused on one question: how can our community deal with immigration and push for reform, which is so vital to our community? So let me welcome you to this hall. Let me also welcome our mayor, the Honorable Sylvester Turner, and of course, our Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo, who will join us for a lunch keynote, both of them for working so hard for a better future for all of Houston residents, no matter where they come from and no matter what their status. Let me also thank our partners in this endeavor, the Center for Houston's Future and the New American Economy. And I'm also grateful to all the other organizations in the process of organizing this event and other events for adding their voice, their energy, and their enthusiasm to this collective community effort. The Rational Middle on Immigration, the Anti-Defamation League, the Houston Immigration Legal Services Collaborative, the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the National Immigration Forum, and the City of Houston's Office of New Americans and Immigrant Communities. And I especially thank the person that worked tirelessly behind this event. And it's not easy to put an event like this, even though we do about 140, 150 of them at the Baker Institute every year. Pamela Cruz, our research analyst on immigration issues here at the Mexico Center. It's a lot of work, and Pam was working at her desk, sometimes late hours. And I would be remiss if I don't thank our Mexico Forum members, of course, for all their support, their financial support behind this major project on immigration. Of course, Stan Merrick Construction Company, stand somewhere here. He's the culprit. If anything goes wrong, talk to Stan. Of course, Mr. and Mrs. Mark Shapiro, the Heinz Company, the Mexican Business Council, and Kimberly Clark de Mexico. If you are, of course, interested in joining the Mexico Forum, there's probably information on your desk. You can contact us. So I want to thank everyone for being here today, and I hope we have a very productive, good discussion on this vital issue to our community, to Houston, and what we can do from the bottom towards the top, because the top has failed us. So let me welcome our first speaker of the day, the Mayor of Houston, the Honorable Sylvester Turner. And for that, I need my glasses. This is a smaller print. The Honorable Sylvester Turner was elected Houston's 62nd mayor in December of 2015. Since taking office, Mayor Turner eliminated a $160 million budget shortfall, led the city to recovery from the hurricane, a very important part of Houston, spearheaded the city's pension reform efforts, and expanded municipal investment in renewable energy. The mayor's other priorities include filling more than 90,000 potholes in our city streets, implementing a 6-point holistic plan for addressing homelessness in our city, reducing flooding, and improving drainage. Quite a few challenges of which our workers, especially migrant workers, are fundamental. Prior to his election, Mayor Turner served for 27 years in the Texas House as representative for District 139. During his tenure, he worked at the House Appropriations Committee for 21 years and served as Speaker pro tem for 3 terms. He was appointed to several budget conference committees to help balance the state's budget and served in the Legislative Budget Board. Turner began his career in law and practicing at Fulbright and Jaworski before founding Barner and Turner Law Firm. The mayor received his bachelor's degree from the University of Houston and a law degree from Harvard, and we all know him well. And we welcome him to talk to us from our city leadership on this important issue of immigration. Mayor, welcome. Thank you.
Let me start off by thanking Tony for hosting us today. It's always good to be back at the Baker Institute. And let me just say good morning to each and every one of you. I certainly want to acknowledge, because I see out in the audience, Councilmember Carla Cisneros from District H. Councilmember, will you please stand? It's good to be with you this morning. Thank you for being here, and then at the same time, I've got several other people from the city of Houston. Takasha Francis, who is the director of what we call DONS, Department of Neighborhoods, but within DONS, and Director Francis, why don't you stand? And then along with her is Terrence O'Neill, that chairs is the director for the New Americans Department for us. And thank you both for being here. Appreciate that. And Wafa. Waf Abdeen is here and chairs my advisory board, so please stand. Thank you for everything that you do. Let me just say that I want to thank the Baker Institute, the Mexico Center, the Center for Houston's Future, Brett, good to be with you, and the New Americans Economy for all the work they did to make this event happen. And I know the County Judge Lina Hidalgo will be here later on at lunch, and please extend to her my very best. Today we'll hear from immigration experts and leaders who will discuss the vital role immigrants will play in shaping Houston's future, which is why I believe makes this gathering one of the most important events in the city. Tony, I do agree with you that there are a lot of things that are taking place at the top, which has caused cities to play an active role, a much more active role. What I will say, though, is a rising tide will lift all boats. And sometimes the boat is not navigated from the top, but sometimes the boat is steered and navigated from the bottom. And so I think cities now are rising up and raising their voices and saying there are things that need to be addressed. As mayor of the fourth largest city in America, my job is to keep Houston moving forward. With that in mind, if there is one thing I want you to take away from today's conference, it is that immigrants have helped Houston build Houston into the great city that it is today, and immigrants will be the key to our city's future. The city of Houston was incorporated on August 30th, 1836, after Augustus and John Allen arrived to pursue their fortunes by purchasing a few thousand acres of land near what is now known as Allen's Landing on Buffalo Bayou. To sell the lots of property to prospective buyers, they exaggerated what Houston looked like by featuring sketches that showed a tidy European-style town nestled between lush hills that were covered by green forests and looked more like a Swiss village than East Texas. And as you can imagine, people responded to that picture, to the advertisement, and they moved to Houston. Those new arrivals were followed by immigrants who came from all over the world, including Mexico, Germany, Italy, China, just to name a few. I don't know what they must have thought when they arrived and found flat land and hot, humid summers instead of mountains, but they certainly did find opportunity. And so they stayed. They did not leave. They worked hard and persevered to build a city that would one day surpass the most vivid imaginations of its founders. The Houston of today is a thriving metropolis that has made contributions in energy, science, medicine, engineering, and other industries. None of these accomplishments would have been possible without the help of immigrants from all over the world who came here to pursue their dreams and build a better and brighter future for themselves and for their families. And although immigrants came here with unique cultural traditions and spoke many different languages, they all shared the same value. In Houston, anything is possible if you work hard. The strong presence and contributions of our immigrant community are vital as Houston continues to grow while other American cities are seeing their populations slowly decline. People are coming from all over the world to the city of Houston, and people are coming from the East Coast, the West Coast, up north, and they are coming to the city of Houston. Immigrants contribute billions of dollars to our economy, and they help start businesses that benefit both native and foreign-born residents. It is because of the economic contributions of immigrants that our city prospers. People come here to find well-paying jobs and raise their families in affordable neighborhoods. Therefore, as we discuss issues surrounding immigration, the positive impact of immigrants in our city is a narrative that needs and must be told. We constantly hear negative messages in the news about immigrants, but we need to counter the derogatory and misinformed rhetoric. We need to remind our residents that immigrants are not our problem, but as the fact shows, They are the solution to many of the challenges we face as a city and as a nation. The Center for Houston's Future released a report, I believe, this morning about how critical immigrants are to the Houston's region economic growth. Many of us here agree that immigrants are good for our city, but it's important that we find new creative ways to share the information for the report and today's conference. We can boast about being the most diverse region in the United States, and we are. The fact that immigrants make a significant economic contributions to Houston's GDP, and they do. That 145 languages are spoken in our many neighborhoods, and they are. And having the third largest consular corps in the country, and we do. For some residents, however, facts like these can get lost as folks are more focused on putting food on their tables or making sure their children get a good quality education. What we learn here today is important, but it is even more crucial that we become creative in finding ways to tell those who may not know much about immigration why this topic matters and why we must continue to be a welcoming city. Houston always has been and always be a welcoming place. This not only means what I've said about the need for informing Houstonians on why the issue of immigration should matter to them, but it also means examining what we can do now to build upon the progress that we have already made. For example, after the most recent presidential election, I spoke to both native-born and immigrant residents to let them know that as their mayor, Houston will always be a welcoming city. The truth is that regardless of documentation status, many people are forced to live in fear because of where they came from, their identity, and their beliefs. But sometimes words are just not enough. We have had to join forces with other cities in Texas and across the United States to take on the fight for sound immigration policy and immigration rights enforcement in the courts. The city of Houston has stood at the forefront of recent challenges to cruel, legally unsound, and counterproductive immigration laws and administrative actions. We were one of the leaders in the federal lawsuit challenging Senate Bill 4, which forces Houston peace officers to enforce federal immigration laws and tries to coerce city officials to stifle criticism of such efforts. Houston has partnered with other city coalitions to counter anti-immigrant measures. For example, in the Ninth Circuit, we joined 36 other cities and counties in opposing the administration's efforts to end temporary protective status for thousands of immigrants from El Salvador, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Sudan. Houston also joined with 17 other cities to oppose the administration's efforts to strip basic rights to essential resources from detained, undocumented children. This includes resources to address the harms of detention and access to legal representation throughout the immigration proceedings. And although today's focus is about the future of immigration, let us not lose sight of the 78,000 refugees from 78 countries who have made Houston their home since 1978. I am proud to be the mayor of the city, known across the country as a place that has resettled one of the highest number, if not the highest numbers, of refugees for our city. And although they've had to leave their countries to escape violence and persecution, they have found ways to become a part of our city, and they too have made significant contributions to Houston's prosperity. I am proud that Houston has partnered with the UN High Commissioner for Refugees to promote their With Refugees campaign. And Houston will be working with them to find new ways to celebrate our commitment to refugees and finding ways to share the work that we are doing. We will continue to set the bar in the United States and serve as an example for the rest of the world. For anyone to achieve the American dream, they must be given the opportunity to become American citizens. And that is why we have also been working with the new American workforce to help legal permanent residents become U.S. citizens. City employees are now able to attend a series of workshops that guide them through the application process. Also, my Office of New Americans and Immigrant Communities has collaborated with Baker Ripley and NALIO Educational Fund to offer monthly citizenship forums at different locations where volunteer attorneys assist legal permanent residents with their citizenship application form. And at the national level, we are also a part of the Cities for Citizenship Collaboration, which aims to assist 1 million legal residents to become citizens by 2020. But even with these few examples of what we have done to help our immigrant communities, there is still a lot more that we need to do. Therefore, I asked a committed group of community leaders called the Welcoming Houston Task Force to give me a set of recommendations on what my administration can do to foster a more immigrant-friendly city. I applaud them for their work and the efforts they put forward to helping me and my Office of New Americans develop strategies that I believe will help us do a better job at serving our immigrant constituents. While we are still in the process of developing our strategic plan, I have used the task force recommendations to focus on the following goals that will help us get started. We will improve judicial access and fairness for immigrants. We will offer legal information about immigration at locations through the city and find new ways to promote the information to both constituents and the city employees. We will develop tools and resources that provide public safety information in different languages and that are culturally sensitive. We will work to increase immigrant representation on City of Houston boards and commissions. You need not be a full citizen to participate in the design and construction of this city, and you need to be at the table to help us to build a very inclusive city. We will create City of Houston welcoming stations that will provide access to comprehensive information, resources, and services for immigrant Houstonians. We will also continue to improve the multilingual and multicultural capacities of employees at public offices and public institutions to better respond to the needs of immigrants. We will create a resource guide that helps immigrants acculturate into society, and we will work with the arts community to generate opportunities for immigrants to tell their stories, celebrate their traditions, and enhance their cultural understanding through existing events and decentralized local and regional collaboration. We will carry out a community-oriented policing strategy that includes Senate Bill 4, Know Your Rights information sessions, and we will coordinate with the Department of Homeland Security Emergency Preparedness for the development of a disaster preparedness plan focused on immigrants and refugee populations. These 10 goals can be found at welcominghouston.org. These steps are going to help us move forward and keep us focused so that we can continue to be a welcoming city and recognize that immigrants are vital to our well-being and prosperous economy. I ask that you continuously monitor that site so that you can check our progress in the coming months. I should also mention Hurricane Harvey. I know that after my speech, you will view a video called Immigration Crossroads, Rebuilding After Hurricane Harvey. It focuses on the need for an immigrant labor force that is needed to build Houston forward. People are still recovering from Harvey. They are trying to rebuild their homes and their lives, and we are doing everything in the world to bring federal dollars to aid in the recovery efforts. But all the money in the world means nothing if we do not have enough people to help us get the job done. We need immigrants to help us in the rebuilding process, and the federal government needs to find ways to allow them, regardless of their documentation status, to work in the recovery effort without fear of deportation. I encourage you to take the information that is going to be presented today and find community-driven solutions to help our immigrant and refugee neighbors. We must do this work, but no one person can do it alone. We must do it together because, as you have heard me say over and over again, we're all in this together. Whether you are native born or among the 1/4 of Houstonians that is foreign born, Our destinies as a people are intertwined. Your future, my future, and our future as a city depends on how we will respond to what is probably one of the greatest challenges of our generation. And as I said earlier, we must do everything we can to take this information to those who are not a part of this conference and who may be indifferent to the topics you will be hearing about today. It is important that they hear this message because without immigrants, we cannot fully recover from the devastation caused by Hurricane Harvey. Without immigrants, we cannot continue to reap the benefit that comes from living in a prosperous city. And most importantly, without immigrants, our children will not have a future that is worthy of the dreams of those who came before us. And let us use this legacy to build a brighter future for our city. And let us continue to cherish this simple truth, which is that in Houston, in this city, regardless of where you come from, regardless of your language, whether you're documented or undocumented, regardless of your origin, the fact that you're in this city, and in this city, anything is possible. Immigrants started this city, and now we are the fourth largest city in the country, soon to be the third. It was not built by people who came, who were here, and did not come from someplace else. Lest we forget, our past will surpass our future, and that is not who we are. Houston can lead the way, and it's our responsibility to take our rightful place. Thank you.
If you don't, we probably have some time for a few questions. So, Mayor, please, there are some cards on the table. You can write your questions, and Pam and Brian, our research analyst and interns, will pick them up, and we'll start a conversation. So, Mayor, I'll start with a couple of questions for you. Look, in Texas, where especially a city like Houston is sandwiched between the federal government and the dynamics that you referred to in your remarks, and the local businessmen, the people that understand that we need a different kind of immigration system. So you get the pressure from above, and you get the pressure from below, and then you get the state as the bill, restrictive bill that passed in Austin. How do you think cities themselves, together and individually, can bind to resist these policies and still comply with the law? I mean, the law is the law in Texas and the federal government, but we also understand the need. How much cooperation, how much you simply just resist and you simply do not cooperate? How do you navigate those waters between what the law demands and what the needs of the city are, and what your mission is to ensure that the city remains a welcoming place with lots of opportunities for everyone?
That's a very, how can I put that? That question has a lot of complexities embedded within it. Especially, we don't set the immigration policies. That's done on the federal level. As a city, we are obligated to follow the law, and we encourage every citizen, every person that's in our city to follow the law. And so when you have a federal policy that's in a state of flux, and sometimes the state is direction, like in Senate Bill 4, goes contrary to what I believe is in the best interest of everyone within our city. And then you're here locally, and we are the closest to the people in the city, or in the state, or in the country. We are closest to them. And on a Tuesday, when people show up at 2 o'clock at community meetings, City Hall, and they are saying, who will stand for us? For many people, most, They see government as one and the same. They don't draw a distinction between the federal, the state, or the local. We're one and the same. And so you advocate for the people within your city. Okay, to the federal level, you say that the direction in which things are taking place is the wrong direction, and we need comprehensive immigration reform. And so you advocate on that end. On the state level, like with Senate Bill 4, you take a look at it to see whether or not it was a bill passed, but is the bill really constitutional? And if you don't think it is, you challenge it. And that's what we did in joining with many other cities to challenge it. And we are in a better position to challenge than the individuals themselves who will be impacted by it. And so if you come to the conclusion that what is being proposed is not right, it is unlawful or unconstitutional, then we have a responsibility to stand up and challenge it on behalf, not just those who are impacted, well, because directly, because all of us are impacted. I can't remember. I think it was the great debate in which, at the end, I think it was Augustine who said, "An unjust law is no law at all." Okay, and so you deal with it on that end. So it's complex, but from where I sit as the mayor of this city, I am the mayor. For some, I'm El Cade, But if you live in the 640 square miles of the city of Houston, regardless of where you come from, regardless of your language, regardless of your faith, if you are living in the 640 square miles of the city of Houston, I am your mayor. And it's my responsibility to do to the best of my ability to represent you on all fronts, okay? And that's exactly what we will do. So we'll join with other cities to build a partnership to challenge those things that we perceive to be wrong. And where necessary, we'll go and lobby on the congressional level, at the state level, but we'll do everything that we can to make sure that the people in the city of Houston are represented.
Mayor, there is another big debate, and I wonder how you feel about this, and it has to do with the contributions of immigrants to the city and what they cost. I mean, we all cost. We obviously consume medical services, we consume educational services, we consume even street pavement as we walk and drive. And there's this debate about the contributions of immigrants, and on one side, they say that immigrants take from the system, and on the other side, they say that immigrants contribute more to the system or they contribute more to the federal level, and others say that they cost at the county and city level. What do you think about this debate? Should we be counting the pennies on who gets what? The federal government gets the federal taxes, which get deducted anyway. The city gets the costs and so on. How do you view the overall contributions of the immigrants? Is this a fair debate to try to segment where immigrants consume and where immigrants contribute?
Well, I think I don't have a problem with people looking at what the cost, as long as they're looking at the equation as a whole. You just can't look at the cost without also looking at the benefits. That would not, it would be wrong just to look at the cost and stop there. The question is, what is the contributions? And do the benefits outweigh, quote unquote, the cost? We all cost. All of us cost. When you're driving on the streets of the city of Houston, it is a cost. Every single day in this city, there are more people that come from outside of the city of Houston driving inside the city of Houston than the people in Atlanta every single day. There is a cost associated when you are on the roads. The potholes that we have to fix just didn't get there on their own. So there's a cost. And we're all paying for it. When you're living in communities that are underserved and under-resourced, if you don't invest in those communities, there's a cost, because they're going to show up. It's not like they are not there. So if you don't attend to the needs of people in your community, the cost will show up, and all of us will be impacted one way or another. People can look at, okay, people going to the healthcare system. Yep, there's a cost associated. But if you don't take care of them, a sickness or a disease just doesn't stay right there. It will impact everyone, and there's a cost associated. Now, on the flip side, look at where the city is today. We are the 4th largest city, soon to be the 3rd, okay? And we are a very successful city. But it is a city that's successful because of everyone who has come to the city and everyone who has contributed to the city. There are many immigrants in the city of Houston that have very successful businesses and are hiring people in our city and are contributing to the economy of the city of Houston. When it comes to startups, technology, and immigration and innovation, immigrants are playing a key role in all of those different components. When you look at the healthcare delivery services, when you look at our academic institutions and others, who's contributing to the success of the city of Houston? So I think you have to add it all up. Yes, there's a cost. What are the benefits? And in this particular case, the benefits exceed the cost. And the reality is, if you take away everybody who's come to this city from the outside, just take everybody out of the equation, then tell me what sort of city do you have and where are we? You know, so people sometimes start where they are, okay? People have been in the city for 30, 40 years, and so anybody that comes after them is an immigrant, okay? Well, if you've been here for 20, 30, 40 years, and you came from someplace else, and you identify now as a Houstonian, but for anybody else who comes here, they're not going to do anything, then there comes a point in time when you have to kind of walk back down memory lane and say, where did I start? And did I contribute to this city? Am I value added? And I will say to you, in our city, those who have come from all over the globe, and 1 of 4 Houstonian in our city is foreign born. 1 of 4 that's in our city, they have been value added. And the reality is, diversity in our city has been and continues to be our strength. It is an asset. Now we have to make sure that we invest. We have to make sure we provide them quality education, okay? If we all want to be successful, because you cannot hurt, quote unquote, immigrants or refugees and think that you are not hurting yourself, okay? There's no way. And so we are a very diverse community. The charge that we have to face, are we going to be diverse, separate, segregated, and apart? Or are we going to be diverse and inclusive? And if we're going to be diverse and inclusive, then we have to do everything we can to lift up everybody. And in lifting up everyone, in essence, we lift up ourselves.
One more question before I get to a couple of them here, Mayor. There is a narrative in the country, obviously. It's an anti-immigration narrative. It comes from the top. And our spaces, our neighborhoods, become less welcoming. And people are afraid. And when I travel south from where I live by Galleria, and I go southwest and down to Bel Air, and do my field research with the neighbors there, the places where you find the Mexican communities and the Korean and the Chinese communities and so on, you sense the tension, the fear. People don't want to go out. I hear that. I was at a wedding this past weekend, and it was a Mexican wedding, and people are afraid, and they prefer to stay home. They don't come out and play soccer. They don't come out and walk in the streets. They don't trust the police. What can we do to really, truly ensure that they make a distinction between the city, the police, the services, and that they can come out in the streets and the parks and enjoy themselves in the city, and ICE and the raids in the workplaces? How do you navigate the environment itself, beyond the programs and the costs and the calculations of what it costs, the actual environment. What can we do as a community to assure these people that it's okay to come out on the weekends instead of hiding in the apartments and coming out only to work? And I see a lot of the cyclists on the streets. They don't ride the bus. They don't want to drive. They're completely afraid. What can we do to temper this poisonous environment that we have created, especially because a lot of our workers in our restaurants, in our service industry, the hospitality industry, the construction industry, everywhere, people are afraid, and we have to deal with it as a community.
And I agree with you. I saw it firsthand in Hurricane Harvey. There were many immigrants who were impacted by Hurricane Harvey, but they did not reach out for services. They did not show up. And we know their homes flooded, because if you drive through various communities and you see all of these homes or apartments that flooded, and no one is coming out of other houses that you know flooded, and when you go and drill down, many of them were immigrants, and they were just afraid to show up and access the what was being offered because they feared being deported. So it is very, very real. You can have all the programs in the world. The city can offer a whole lot of programs. But you have to go where people are. City Hall just can't be at City Hall. You have to go in the neighborhoods and communities, into the apartment complexes and others where people live. You have to partner with people and organizations that they trust, okay? On a Saturday, for example, I had the opportunity to go out in the communities and actually be in the living room of immigrants from our city and their families. To sit on their sofa, to talk to the parents, to sit next to their kids, okay? And to let them know, yes, I'm the mayor from City Hall, but I am here, and I'm glad you are here. And let me tell you what we have to offer. Because the reality is, we can say a whole lot, but people can judge you when they see you and look in your eyes, and they can evaluate whether or not you care and whether or not you are there because you are concerned. So City Hall has to go beyond Bagby Street. And we have to partner with organizations and individuals and others that have established a trusting relationship. For example, the census is coming up. My greatest fear is that people will not respond to the census because all of the rhetoric on the federal level, that they simply will not respond. And if they don't respond and we have an undercount, then that will reduce the federal dollars that will come into our city, where all of us will be adversely impacted if there's an undercount. And in this census, whether you're a citizen or not citizen, that's not the issue. We need to know who's living in the city. But if people are fearful, if they're afraid of providing information, they're not going to do it. So we have to start early. And you have to get into the communities, and you have to go where people are, and you have to talk to them 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times over. You have to win people's trust. And so, yeah, words do have meaning. Your presence has meaning and value, and we just can't stay in our own comfort zone. We have to go before, and not everybody can do that. Because if you don't have an understanding, and if you're not sensitive, then you're not the right representative, okay? But I agree with you. That's why we are constantly saying to people, HPD is not ICE. We need you. We want you to report crimes. That's important. We want you to take advantage of the resources that we have. Because the reality is, it's not just in the interest of those individuals, but the city of Houston as a whole benefits.
One more question, Mayor, because I know you have to go, but I think it's important. Houston is an enormously dynamic city. I lived in El Paso. I hail from the region of West Texas. And when I came to Houston, one of the things that most impressed me is the fact that Houston is an incredibly dynamic business region, really. County, city, and the cities that surround the city of Houston. But we hear from businessmen, from entrepreneurs, from people that they don't have the workers. The construction industry doesn't have the workers. The hospitality industry doesn't have the workers. The food industry doesn't have the workers. And there's now even a threat that our own Texas Medical Center will not have the workers, the visas, to do that. I mean, isn't that in some ways stunting our growth, the opportunity for us to expand our economy, to function well, to have the kind of labor that we need, and the access to the labor that we need? What is the future of Houston if we get a system that is simply unable to resolve itself? What's going to happen to the economy of Houston, a city that is so economically dynamic, and as you mentioned, the fourth in the city, but it's much more than just the fourth largest city. It's a whole region. And I participate in a similar dialogue in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Right.
And these conversations are the same. We don't have the workers. What's going to happen to our economy if we do not get the visas, the workers, and the ability of these people that are coming in to work in peace and to enjoy their families? And what's going to happen to our businesses and our economy if we do not have access to this labor?
Well, you can't build forward if you don't have the opportunity, you don't have the people, the labor force to make that happen. At the U.S. Conference of Mayors in January, I think it was the Secretary of Education, Secretary of Labor, that indicated that there are 8 million jobs that have gone, that presently exist that are unfilled. 8 million. And many of those are right here in the city of Houston. This is a growing, dynamic city, but we need a labor force. Okay. You can be a city of opportunity, but if you don't have the workforce, you're just a city of opportunity on paper, and you want to make it a reality. And that's what we have to let people know. If someone needs a home, and we don't have the workers to build the home, who's impacted? You can have the money to build a home, but if you don't have the workforce, the labor force, you're going to wait. Okay? It slows everything down. We live in a time where we are all connected, whether we like it or don't. We are all connected. And how you treat your neighbor, how you treat the person that lives down the street or across town, how we respond, we are all connected by it. That's just the nature of it right now. And quite frankly, it's in our best interest. And a lot of people will say, well, they're taking our jobs. No, there are plenty of jobs there. The reality is we don't have enough people to fill the jobs. Okay? That's the reality. And so if you're building forward, if you're building a city for the future, then we have to make sure that we have the labor force. We need an educated working force. That's true. So it's important how we address our educational system. It's important how we address our health and delivery system. It's important on the workforce developments that we put in place. All of these things are connected. And you just can't say to a whole group of people, we don't want you, or we want you to live behind the curtain, so to speak. It doesn't work for any of us. It doesn't work for any of us, okay? And quite frankly, we should have learned that lesson a long time ago. We've ignored people in communities that have been underserved and under-resourced for decades, and we are impacted by it. When people, for example, commit crimes, they don't just stay in a neighborhood. They travel all over. It's important to educate them. And so, look, in this city, we are very, very fortunate. We're very fortunate that people have come from all over the globe and helped to make us who we are. And I'm very thankful for that. But we have a lot of work to do, and we have to change the narrative. And it's going to take all of us to change the narrative. And look, I mean, just from a personal point of view, you know, my ancestors didn't just come here voluntarily. I mean, let me just say this: we can't be hypocrites in this game, because decades ago, people went to the African continent and brought people here against their will. And why did they do it? They picked this nation's cotton, they reared this nation's children, and they built this nation's buildings. And they did not volunteer to come. They didn't walk here. They didn't voluntarily get in boats and lose their lives trying to come here. They were brought here against their will. And we are here. And I am a descendant of them. And I now sit here as the mayor of the 4th largest city of the United States, soon to be the 3rd. And folk in my history didn't just come here on their own, they were brought here. Now there are people who are coming here, and they're coming here for their families, for an opportunity, and they're leaving persecution, and they are coming here. And now the narrative has changed. I think it comes a point in time as a country, we have to be consistent in who we are. And at some point in time, the consciousness of America has to stand up and basically say, we are a country, a state, and a city of immigrants. Some came involuntarily. Some are coming voluntarily. But regardless of how you got here, we are here and we are in it together. Now let's build a country, a state, and a city that all of our children can be proud of and that will continue to flourish. And how you treat the least will go a long way in telling you what sort of country you will be. I close with this. Someone wrote that children are messages that we send into the future to a world we ourselves may never see. What sort of message shall we send? In the city of Houston, it will be a positive one.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much, Mayor. Oh, sorry. You got it?